It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
And a fine Saturday matinee to you, Steve. How are you?
It's great to be here. I'm sounding better than you sound.
What is the deal? I cannot wake it up. I can't wake it up.
You're still recovering, though, right? That's what happens when you live in the colder, climates. You get, susceptible to horrible, bad things.
We don't have scorpions or tarantulas just wandering free hither and yon.
Well, that's true. All the animals and plants that are native here want to kill you.
Yes, everything is out to get you and eat you and poison you. You live in a place that was not meant for humanity. I'm sure you have nice friends.
We just huddle inside our homes. Our little, just keep the environment out there. We're in here. That's just like you. You're cooped up for the winter. It's like winter lockdown mode. Can't go outside.
Well, it's just soggy. It's like a cold sponge all day. That's
really, so much more comfortable. Yes.
What have you seen? What have you seen lately? Have you seen anything good?
Yeah. Okay. So last night, it's been on my list to see for a very long time. My brother's in town, and he said, we're going to sit down and watch this. I said, okay.
Does your brother have a home, by the way? Because it feels like every week my brother's in town.
Oh, he's been, he's out visiting. So okay. He's traveling the Southwest right now. So we watched Steven Soderbergh's Schizopolis, which is, I'm still trying to figure out what happened to me, but I liked it. It's really bizarre. It feels very 90s. So this was like, I think 95 or 96. So this was, I think sort of before the second phase of his career. Cause you had, Sex, Lies and Videotape and Kafka and that. And then there was a lull before he came back with Out of Sight. And this is one of those weird things that he did for himself, sort of very experimental.
That he was in.
That he's in with his ex-wife.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it's bizarre. You can't, it's very challenging to make sense of what's going on, but it's extremely entertaining while it's confusing you.
Well, I'm proud of you for watching it. I have not seen it, and I'm a Soderbergh fan. It is. I can't even say it's been on my list. It's one of those. Yes, I've heard of it.
It's worth checking out. It's worth checking out. You'll either. I think you should experience it once, and you may decide I never need to see that again. But I think it will entertain you. It's just
as long as
quirky
it doesn't
enough.
Go ahead and color and sort of retcon my opinion of Steven Soderbergh. I'm okay.
Well, you can just say, oh, that's when he was young and ambitious and trying to be artsy and do something weird. Okay. He's past that now.
All right.
That was 20 odd. That was a whole adult ago. That was 22 years ago.
All right. It's on the list then. Schizopolis. Good find.
Yes. What about you? You've cooped up in bed, binging anything?
I have been, but it's been all for the show. I'll tell you, we finally got around to recording the episode on Local Hero, which, if you haven't seen, is worth seeing. It's a really cute film. It is not at all what I expected. We watched this film. Stars Burt Lancaster and Peter Reichert and Wedge Antilles. I'm not kidding. Wedge Antilles is amazing. Dennis Lawson is a principal character in this on this little Scottish island, and he's wonderful. He's just wonderful. Best thing in the movie. It's a story of this oil company that sends a guy to Scotland to buy this island, and you think it's going to be the whole story of the island reacting negatively and him, the oil company guy getting convinced, this peaceful island lifestyle is so great. I want to stay with these people in Scotland, but the Scots all want to get rid of the island too. They'll take the money, and that whole thing I find absolutely delightful. So we watched this movie. It's from 1983, so the technology is not what it is today in terms of making the movie. We watched it for Andy Nelson, the Oscar sound designer, yes. The other Andy. And it was a fascinating thing to talk to him about this movie because he's just wrapping up Ready Player One right now, and the movie that he selected, I guess this is my assumption. I always expect when we do these speakeasy conversations that the person that we're bringing on is going to choose a movie that inspires them somehow in their career. And that is not really the case here, right? This is not a movie that is incredible. It is an incredible sound movie. It's just a movie that really touches him in terms of storytelling, and so it was really nice to hear him talk about it. So I watched Local Hero. That was fantastic. I also rewatched All That Jazz, Steve.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And this was for our conversation with Nick Sadler, a cinematographer behind Coherence.
Coherence.
Yeah. Have you seen that one yet?
No, but I saw, on our reviews feed that you and Andy had watched that, and it's been on my list of movies it sounds really interesting. So it's out there. And so I saw both of you guys saw it and, saw how you reviewed it. I thought, okay, this is moving back up on my list of things to make sure I watch.
Yeah, it is oh my goodness. Okay, well, first of all, Nick Sadler is an incredible guy. He's an incredible photographer. He's an incredible cinematographer. He's an app developer. He makes apps that are used on practically every movie that is being made right now. He's out there. He does a lot of things. And this movie in particular, Coherence, it's a smaller movie. I mean, they shot it in 3 days. I don't want to tell you about the movie, but I do want to tell you just how they shot it. Do you think that would spoil it too much?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think so.
Okay.
The premise is it opens on a dinner party, and you're in this house, and there's a dinner party, and it's shot very low budget, and they have a whole bunch of Canon 5Ds, and so they put them throughout the house, and they have a bunch of people running them. This is what I want you to think about as you're watching this movie. This movie was shot like a play. They ran it straight through with cameras everywhere. So when characters leave the house and go to a different location, there are cameras outside capturing them doing that while the action is still going on at the dinner party. So just just think about that as you're watching this movie and try to piece it back together, because it's one of those movies that will break your brain a little bit. And I know I liked it even better after having this conversation with Nick, where he told us of how they made it. So totally worth it. I can't wait to get this episode out for people to hear. He's a treat too. So both of those speakeasies were a long time coming, and were really fun to talk about. In the case of Andy Nelson, 25 years. Our Andy Nelson and I have been talking about that Andy Nelson. And so to have a conversation with, we've been watching him on the Oscars for that long.
Yeah.
And he was actually very funny. He said, nobody really, I'm always amazed when people are like waving at me from, the red carpet as I'm walking into the Oscars, because who pays attention to us guys below the line? But there are people who do. And I'm just really honored that people are interested in the work that I do. So it was very cool. We talked to him all about Atmos. So it'd be fun to hear about what he thinks about mixing Atmos and how that has integrated into the process. So it was really fun. So those are the movies that I've seen. All That Jazz. I wanted to get back to you on that because, you did a Three of a Kind, including All That Jazz, some time ago now, and it had been a long time since I'd seen it, and wow, still a fantastic movie. The last half hour of which I just can't stomach. Like it's really hard, mostly because of the heart surgery stuff. It's tough for me to watch. So anyhow, that's it. That's for me. It turns out I have seen a lot of things all in a row, and they all have blended together. And all this while still trying to finish season 2 of The Expanse. So I'm really struggling with that. And now Jessica Jones is out. I don't know what to do.
You can't. It's like they turned on the fire hose.
Yeah, they really did. This time of year is tough.
It's just, well, then I'm looking at what's out in theaters, and it's like March has become like what January and February used to be. You've got a couple things like early. It's like next week, there's like nothing. We got a lull in the middle of March, this weekend that, may take the family out to see Wrinkle in Time. There's, Red Sparrow that I'm kind of intrigued. I don't know if I have to see that out in, the theater, if that one can wait. But one of my former trailer picks, Thoroughbreds, is out sort of in limited release. So there's that like right now. And then I'm looking, it's like nothing. It's like everybody got scared off the back end of the month because of Ready Player One.
Yeah.
And the behemoth of marketing and expectation that thing has become, which is quite a source of controversy, over on Discord. It seems like, a civil war is happening where there's a big split. And you've got Andy Nelson on one side saying, let me just have fun and enjoy this. And a lot of other people saying, this is ruining everything. This is horrible. So
this is one of those things. I can see the perspective of some of the marketing being derivative, and yet I'm of mind where I feel like I was going down the road of being poisoned by it, and I think that there's a different conversation around some of the bile that I'm reading on the internet about Ready Player One, and I think Nick Langdon actually had a really sane post on it in Discord about that this is reactionary as a result of changing hands of nerd culture, and even though the book wasn't one of the great books. I had a good time with the book. I had a good time letting go with that book. And I need to read it again because all of a sudden it seems like people who I thought enjoyed the book are now saying, oh, the book was derivative and boring now that the movie is coming out. And it's not my memory of it, but I feel like I'm a little bit poisoned by it. And I don't want to be poisoned. I want to go into this movie clean. And so I feel like we also kind of need to reclaim the word spoiler. Like, it's not just knowing what the movie's about, but I don't need other people's baggage against a movie on my shoulders when I go in to see it. I am totally open to it being a bucket of crap. I am fine with that. I would love to talk about it after the fact, but let's at least judge it on its merits. It's very rare that Steven Spielberg has made a movie that I have just hated. And I have a hard time imagining that this is going to be one of those movies.
Yeah, well, I think you get into a certain genre, and I just rewatched Bright and made my brother watch it because I said, there was all this just, hate, this movie is horrible. And we watched it and he said, oh, yeah, okay, at the beginning you can see, some of, okay, we've got to make these things happen for the story. You can see sort of the plotting, we got to push this thing here. We've got to have this. There's some authority up there that's making sure that this has to happen, that he's the diversity hire. So he has to be with Will Smith. And there's not a lot of explanation in that. It's just that has to be the case because we need these guys together in a car. But other than that, yeah, you get, it's like Training Day and it's like a lot of other cop buddy movies. But I think, there's a lot of great visuals in there. And there's some, really interesting moments that I thought did not merit the hate. And it's the same thing with Ready Player One. It's like within these genres, I almost think it's this fear of liking something and putting yourself out there to say, yes, I enjoy something, because that takes a risk to align yourself with something. And it's just easier to nitpick and hate. And unfortunately now the online communities, that just snowballs into this huge thing. And I will admit, I reread Ready Player One and it was sort of the Pulp Fiction effect where you watch it the first time and there's stuff that's unexpected just coming at you and it's this thrill ride and it's like, oh my gosh, Uma just took a needle to the chest. And the second time you know what's coming. So there's that excitement and thrill is muted now because you're like, yeah, okay, they're going to talk about a cheeseburger and that's not as funny because it's not now unexpected. It still has its strengths, but with Ready Player One, the thrill of, oh my gosh, that reference and oh my gosh, this piece is gone. And you start to focus more on the story and it just doesn't hold up as well because so much of it is pinned to those pieces. But I am confident in the movie because from the trailer, I can see they have made significant changes. I'm not expecting a really faithful adaptation. I am imagining they've taken some basic concepts and there's some key moments, but it looks like there's a lot of other parts of the story where, particularly in the third act, that it may be going in some slightly different directions, which I think is good because that's the important part of adaptation of something. How do you take the book? How do you make it visual? What works in the book may not work visually, and you'll have to modify that. And I trust Steven Spielberg knows how to deliver an entertaining film.
I absolutely agree. And, we watched for family movie night last night. This was the first time we've done something quite like this. We introduced the family to Jaws. Neither of my kids had seen Jaws. And I'm starting to feel like it's time to have family movie night be about more than, a certain age of stuff. And I want to talk about different vectors of approach to film. And so Jaws was the start. There are pieces of it where they responded with, yeah, it's an old movie. And
Yeah.
It's weird. It's an old movie, but boy, they were on the edge of their seats for the narrative of it, and I think they actually really enjoyed the story and the ride and the scares, and now we get to talk about hiding the shark. Like what does that do?
Yeah.
Like there's a whole new approach, and that's Spielberg sort of at his best, and I feel like I'm going to extend the benefit of the doubt until I see this movie, and then we'll have a conversation about how well all the rest of it works. I am firmly on the side of the posters. I think they're clever and funny, and every time I see the Breakfast Club one, I laughed out loud. I thought it was great, and so you want to mine pop culture for marketing purposes. As somebody who has designed posters for things in the past, have a ball. These were terrific. Yes, I also want great movie posters out there, and there aren't a whole lot of great movie posters, but this campaign is funny and charming. Even if the original source material posters weren't that great, the idea is funny and charming and fits in the world of the film. So I am letting that go.
Oh, well, I think it was Andy that brought up that's, nobody got all bent out of shape when the Muppets did that, several years ago when that movie came out. And that was the same thing. Let's take something and we're going to tweak it. And it was funny and it was cute and innovative. And maybe there's backlash now because somebody already did that. But I think it's being done well, in particular because it gets to me, it's a nice bridge to the world of the movie where you've got the main character becoming a celebrity. So it makes sense that you would see these types of, we'll deconstruct all of this, at the end of March. So,
I'm actually, unfortunately, I don't think I'm even going to be there, but I'll be in Discord for sure.
Okay.
So, anyhow, let's jump into trailers, shall we?
Yes, let's do that.
All right. I'm going to go first.
You do that.
All right.
Bring it on.
My trailer is The House of Tomorrow, which opened in the San Francisco International Film Festival in April of 2017. So it's been floating around the film festival circuit for a little while. It opens limited in the U.S., at least, on April 20th of this year. And it's one of those movies. It feels like a remake of a movie that Asa Butterfield has just done. Which is the space between us, where he's a boy who's born and lives on Mars, and he travels to Earth for the first time. Now, in the House of Tomorrow, he lives, in this house with Ellen Burstyn, and he's in this house and has never really gone outside the house, and he lives in Future Dome and is introduced to the world for the first time. And it's this exact same sort of fish out of water potential romance that I feel like we just got in the space between us, and he's doing it again immediately. And I don't know if I find that charming and cute or sad, a sad case of bad timing. But as you know, I love Ellen Burstyn. I think she's fantastic, and I love that she's in this. It's got some other wonderful people, including Asa Butterfield, who I really enjoy. Alex Wolff, we had a great time with him in Jumanji, and Maude Apatow is in this movie. Is Meredith Whitcomb. Maude is the daughter of the other director Apatow, and so it's fun to see her in this thing. So I actually think this is going to be one of those movies that might be kind of fun. Certainly, I don't know if I'll be seeing it with my teenage daughter. She might go with a friend, but it's. But I love the whole, sort of honor to discovering punk music, and I actually probably the thing that connects me to this most is watching my kids when I introduce them to something new. The look on his face in the trailer when he puts the earbuds in and listens to punk for the first time is the experience that I just adore every time I introduce introduce my kids to something new, and so I found this one a charming little trailer, and I hope it gets a little bit of a wider release. It's at 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb, so it clearly passes the 6-star test of being potentially interesting. So, I'm going to give it a shot. Probably. What did you think? Seems like a movie that might be right up your alley.
It is exactly right up my alley. And if I hadn't picked my other trailer, this was one that I saw and I already had picked my trailer. So I was like, well, I may come back to this one. This is exactly the type of movie that I really enjoy seeing. And it's, I think, like Gen X now getting to that point where they're writing these stories. And because this, I can't place when this is, but clearly it must be in the 80s if we're discovering punk rock music, correct? So it's Gen X going back to its teen years. And I see like this, it's like the ghost of John Hughes, looms over everything. And, and there's such an influence. I won't say, oh, this is, hitting all the John Hughes tropes, but you can just see that in terms of honoring what teens value and what that experience is like and approaching it truthfully and honestly with all the challenges and ugliness to it that is growing up. So I just really enjoy films like this. Yes. Mr. Butterfield is the king of fish out of water right now. We will see where he continues to go with his next projects, but I think he does it well. And I'm really, this is one that, I hope to be able to go with my kids because I want to watch them enjoy a movie like this, to see that. Yeah. Do they have that? But as a parent, I realize sometimes I have to let them go. They have to go and swoon over the cute boys on their own without dad there next to them. So,
oh, don't even. Well, the director of this film is Peter Levolsky, and he also directed another movie that, in researching for this movie, I now really, really want to see. It's called Leonard in Slow Motion, and it stars Martin Starr. Originally of Freaks and Geeks and Knocked Up, but now Silicon Valley. And just listen to the title or to the summary. Leonard exists in slow motion, but lives in a regular speed world. Now, I'll see it at that already. When he discovers his office crush is getting transferred to Florida, Leonard decides he must somehow become a regular speed to win her heart before she leaves town for good. That also is a hot 7.2 on IMDb, which again passes the 6-star rule. This could be really great. So it has now hit my list. Leonard in Slow Motion. I want to see these films of Peter Levolsky. He seems to be making good, funny things that probably more people need to see. So we might have to come back to this.
Okay.
All right. What's your trailer?
My trailer, I'm keeping with our secret theme that we didn't know we had, which was movies featuring children of directors from the 80s. Or I guess not necessarily from the 80s, but children of directors, because you've had Maud Apatow, and my film is Flower, which you get a twofer, actually a threefer in this, because it's directed by Max Winkler, son of Henry Winkler, starring Zoe Deutsch, daughter of your teen crush, Leah Thompson, and director Howard Deutsch, who was sort of like the, co-pilot with John Hughes in a lot of those 80s teen movies. And this film, the best way to describe it is it's, I don't know what IMDb does with their descriptions, but it says a sexually curious teen forms an unorthodox kinship with her mentally unstable stepbrother. And I thought, that's not what I get out of the trailer. You've got also Adam Scott in this as and Catherine Hahn. So there's some comedy to this that doesn't come across in that IMDb description, but it's seems like they're stalking Adam Scott because they think there's something suspicious going on with him. So
like this, he's a sexual predator of some sort.
Yes, and they want to catch him. And so there's wild antics. And what really stood out for me was this is about when you're a teen and you sort of feel nothing can get in your way, that you can get away with anything, and you do outrageous and sometimes dangerous antics, and what that, does to your life. And so I'm intrigued by this because, again, straddling the sort of tragic humor of being a teenager and more serious elements. So I think it looks like a really interesting cast because you've also got Dylan Galula, who people may recognize as Xanthippe from Kimmy Schmidt. So between the two of them, I think we've got some really interesting performances that I'm looking forward to catch. And this one looks like it's coming out in limited release next week, March 16th. So
excellent. Coming soon.
It's coming soon to be out there. Yeah. So what did you get?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. I thought it was really funny. And Zoe Deutsch is she's just a star. I mean, she's just so charismatic and funny, and I'm into it. I also realized that there's a secondary, a beta theme at work here, which is alum from Parks and Rec. You've got Adam Scott. I've got Nick Offerman, both characters that were just fantastic in Parks and Rec. So I think it's I think it's going to be great. This is another one that I'm going to have to roll the dice on whether I see it with my kids. But yeah, I think it's going to be very funny.
Well, I am cautious because of your IMDb 6-star rule, because it's hovering at 5.4, but that appears to be based on only 100 or so votes. So I think, it's early on, and we will see. And as we discussed, I won't embrace the hate, and I will go enjoy this for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, as you should. All right. It's time. Let us, Steve, move to the lists.
We need a song or a theme or something to introduce this, like maybe crumpling paper, because it's always like, damn, you stole mine.
And stomping feet. Crumple paper and stomp your feet. Yeah, that's
there
perfect.
We go.
Right, that's right. The list is based on the film that we talked about on the main show this week is Point Break, the original Point Break from 1991, with the great Swayze and Reeves. And so we decided to go broad this week and look at films that we enjoy that are in the genre or in the theme of people going undercover to spy upon other people, cops undercover. And so that's where we ended up. And I think I've got in my list, I've got one that's it's super predictable. I'm not going to lie to you. It's super predictable. But the other two, I'm hoping, are immune to being stolen. I will be very surprised if you find a way to steal from me here.
Okay, we'll see.
Deep into the mines for this one.
Okay, I'm in a similar situation where I've got one that I think is likely to be stolen, and the other two I think I am immune, but we will see. Okay.
All right. Well, would you like to kick us off? Would you like to?
Sure. I'll steal one of yours.
Would you like to go the risk? I'm going to take the risk. Yeah. Let's
just say, that was the Partridge Family's "Doesn't Somebody Want to Be Wanted," followed by Edison Lighthouse, "Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes," as K. Billy's super sounds of the 70s weekend just keeps on trucking. Reservoir Dogs.
Yep. Right there. We go. There we go.
That's the one. That's the one. I thought it's just an iconic film. It's does that whole, tension of when you're undercover. To me, when it's handled really well, it's that dramatic irony of, is he going to get caught? Is he or she going to get caught? Is their identity going to be revealed? And the tension that creates, and how well that is sustained and woven into the story. And I think Reservoir Dogs is just an iconic film that you put up there, and there we go.
Yeah, and coupled with an absolutely impeccable cast. I mean, there isn't a single guy in a suit that is bringing anything but A game, and so the big reveal is fantastic. It's a great pick, and it hurts my feelings that I didn't get to do it. Let's see. Where should I start? I think I will go back in time to 1949. Steve, what were you doing in 1949? I'd like to think you'd have been in the theater. I'd like to think you'd been in the theater watching White Heat, starring James Cagney. Have you seen this one?
I have not.
Add it to your list.
Okay.
Add it to your list. This is definitely told from the perspective of Cagney, right? As he's a gangster. He's Cody Jarrett. Arthur Cody Jarrett is his character, and he is a gangster. He's a criminal leader of the Jarrett gang. And his mother, of course, Ma Jarrett, is in it with him, and he's not a good guy. And in the course of a train robbery, he kills a treasury officer, a Fed, and he's terrified that he's going to go to jail for a very long time. So to go to jail for a shorter time, he confesses to another crime and is put in a cell. And in order to get information out of him, they put Vic Pardo, playing the part of Hank Fallon, undercover in his cell as his cellmate. And that is where the undercover story starts. It is a really interesting story, I think, and super fun. Cagney's at his like weird noir gangster best in this movie. And, but, you know, I got a great deal of satisfaction out of watching it, particularly the emotional sort of ride that we go on between these two characters. At this time in cinema history, it's really fun to watch. It's not quite so gritty as something like The Departed, you know, so I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. That's White Heat, 1949, directed by Raoul Walsh, written by Ivan Goff and Ben Roberts. And it was based on a book, White Heat by Virginia Kellogg. So you can read the book too.
I just know, like, look at I made it at top of the world.
Yep.
You know, that's about all I know.
Classic. Yeah, it's the iconic stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's got some iconic one-liners that you will say, oh, yep, now I've seen that movie.
Okay. Good. All right.
Check it off the list. Yeah.
I will add that to my list.
It's also a good movie, though. That's the thing.
Yes.
Sometimes you get those iconic lines and you're like, oh, okay, well, at least I've seen it.
Yeah. No, I'm always looking to broaden the decades that I am, you know, experiencing. And there you go. I'm traveling back in time for one of my picks. But my next pick is not to travel that far back in time. But when I was thinking of Undercover, I could not pass up an opportunity to talk about Brit Marling, because, you know, I'm a huge Brit Marling fan. Another Earth, Sound of My Voice, The OA on Netflix.
Yeah.
So
I can't believe I didn't think of this. This is a great pick.
Yes, The East, written by Marling and her frequent collaborator Zal Batman. I just call him Zal Batman because he's got Batman in his last name. I'm like, that is just the best last name ever. But the story is that Sarah is an undercover agent at a private intelligence firm, and she's hired to infiltrate the East, which is an eco-terrorism cell that's been targeting companies that pollute the environment. And so she's got to go in, and you've got a very of course, charismatic leader to this group. And so there's always that question of, when you get into a cult, do you start to lose your perspective and identify with what they're doing and what their efforts are about? So this was one that I was not sure, you know, whether I was going to like it, but I was hoping. And it is one that I think is one of those little hidden gems that I'm going to encourage people to go discover, because it's just a very well-crafted film, also with Ellen Page in there.
This is one of those movies, Steve, that is ripe for either a Three of a Kind or a Trailer Rewind. It is a candidate for both. And I am really surprised you haven't talked more about it. I think it's a wonderful film. You should get JJ to watch this and talk about it.
It might traumatize him. I'm not sure.
There's a line.
He's very fragile sometimes, and I fear him saying, I had to watch this from across the room, because it does get intense.
It gets very intense.
Very intense.
You guys have done some pretty intense.
Oh yes. Oh well. It's Alexander Skarsgård. I think some of the scenes with
porn, for crying out loud.
That was Andy's fault. Yeah, I know. But no, this is one that, this is why, you know, the Trailer Rewind exists. This is why, yes. So I'm glad. I am thrilled to know that you have seen this one. I thought this was going to be one of those, well, I'll maybe put it on my list type of films. So
it's good. Yeah, it's good. All right. My next pick is a 1981 crime drama. And this one also surprised me because it's one of my dad's favorite films. And so I'm going to say it. I don't like it as much as my dad does, but it's interesting, and it has some interesting things going on. My dad's a huge Treat Williams fan.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. No, you're not stealing. You're not stealing it. But as I was discussing with my brother films, he's like, this one, I'm like, I haven't seen. He's like, oh my gosh, you've got to see this. I'm like, oh, okay.
Prince of the City.
Yes.
Prince of the City. Yeah. This one, I mean, it's got an amazing cast of the era, right? Treat Williams. In addition to Treat Williams, you got Jerry Orbach. Jerry Orbach. Oh my goodness. For those who didn't know he was anything other than Law and Order, and Lindsay Krause and Bob Balaban. I mean, it's a fantastic cast. The story is of a dirty cop, right? He's a narcotics detective who's also a drug addict, right? So Treat Williams is a nasty guy, and he gets roped into internal affairs and doing a corruption investigation in his own department, and it's one of those movies that there are no good guys, but they make the bad guys the best guys, and in fact the bad guys in the movie are actually the litigators who uncover the crimes and litigate against them. So they totally turn the tables, and you walk out feeling really dirty for who you end up rooting for. But I will tell you, it's based on the book, the true story of Robert Daley, and his of Robert Daley's book about this narcotics detective, Robert Lucci, and as such, it was made with such sort of care that, in fact, I did not know this. The film was considered authentic enough that the head of the DEA called Sidney Lumet to get a copy of this book for their training program. And so, it's worth seeing because it has legs far beyond just the small screen you'll be watching it on. There's a generation of drug enforcement agents that have been exposed to this film because of its authenticity in their training capacity. So I think it's really interesting for a number of reasons. The undercover angle is particularly dark and gritty and 80s. And if you're into those sorts of things, this would be a movie for you.
It's almost 3 hours long. I didn't know they made movies that long back then. No, there's every reason to watch this movie. There's not anything I could look at. I could look at this cast, look at the director. I'm like, okay, yes, this is something that I'm ashamed to say I have not seen, but it was one of those things, I guess, because of when it was released. I was working in a video store in high school. I was like, oh, that's one of those like late 70s, early 80s things. Yeah, whatever. Give me something now. So now I'm in, sort of a mature film viewer saying, yes, I'm going to go back into the darkness of the late 70s and early 80s and look at some really gritty drama. So
it's funny. I think the funny bit to me is that Prince of the City actually was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. But it lost to On Golden Pond.
Oh, yeah. Sort of the opposite ends of the spectrum
so
there.
There's an Oscars hate crime there.
Yeah.
Right there. How do you compare these two movies? So anyway, that's it.
Okay.
Prince of the City, 1981.
Okay. So I am traveling back in time. I'm going to take you way, way back to 1959 to Alfred Hitchcock, who often you think of Mistaken Identity, which is not undercover. But Roger Thornhill, in his quest to find out why these guys are after him and have mistaken him for George Kaplan, eventually runs across the police. He gets arrested and they hand him over to the government, who tells them, no, George Kaplan doesn't exist. But now they're going to ask him to continue assuming the role of George Kaplan to figure out what's going on. So we've got Cary Grant undercover in the last part of North by Northwest.
Didn't you pick that for something else recently?
Oh, probably because it's an amazing film.
It is an amazing film. You can pick it for so many different things.
And I was like, wait, have they done this? No. Why have they not done this? Why is there no Hitchcock series on this show? What's going on?
That's too funny.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
But because at first I thought about it. I'm like, no, it's Mistaken Identity. It's Mistaken Identity. And then it was, oh, no, there's that turn where he knowingly takes on the undercover agent role, which, it's the regular guy, regular man on the street, all American guy, fighting for his country. So
that's awesome. That's a great pick. I love it. And pick it every week for all I care about. Give me Eva Marie Saint any day of the week.
So number one, I'm waiting for your next pick to be a Woody Allen movie, and I guess you just threw down I've got to find a way to work North by Northwest into
every single week. I have to tell you, it is too early, and I completely spaced that I needed to start with Woody Allen. But that's back on the list for next week. I'll do whatever it is we talk about. I'll do it. And now we have to go to my even more predictable pick. And sometimes you just have to go for the adrenaline boost. And that's why I am, yeah. That's why I am choosing the 2001 action crime road thriller, The Fast and the Furious. Many people forget that the whole thing started with undercover cop Brian O'Connor going undercover with a group of to uncover a group of unknown hijackers who use Honda Civics to hijack trucks, and ends up falling in with Vin Diesel and the family, and it starts a legendary series of adrenaline-fueled race joy. I actually didn't give this whole series any credit at all. I wasn't interested in it. I didn't watch it. I didn't see any of the films in the theater until the most recent one. And then Andy told me, you got to give it a shot. It's one of those things you have to have in your catalog.
Yeah.
So I binged them. I watched all of them in order all at once, I think over a course of a 3-day weekend. And I walked out. First of all, I had the bends. Like, I felt like I was shaking.
Yeah. Yes.
But also, I feel like I appreciate the series for what it is. This is a movie where the filmmaker, or a series where the filmmakers, I think, pull out all the stops. They use every single kind of technology that they can, from practicals to CG visuals to whatever they can do to make a stunt look great. They will do it. And in many ways, these movies, I actually really appreciate the craftsmanship of the integration of stunt work to effects work. I think it's just really fun, and I have a good time at these movies in spite of any of the more serious cinephile complaints.
No, I'm right there with you. I binged the series, I think last year or the year before, so it was up through the 5th or 6th one, maybe, at that point, because I'd seen the first one when it came out, and then the second one was sort of where things started to get derailed there in the second and third ones, but then they came back and found their flow, and it reminded me of binging way back in college, like the original Star Trek movies, where it's just fun to go one after the other, but then you step back and realize it's the same thing over and over again. Like, hey, look, the Enterprise is the only ship in the quadrant. Okay, they're gonna go deal with something. It's like, okay, we've got another heist. I'm just waiting for, let's get these two, franchises together, and let's have Fast and Furious Voyage Home, where they've got to, get the whales, from one place to another, and there's a big car chase. I think that would be, because where else do you go with this? We're jumping cars from buildings. It's gotten to the point where, unfortunately, it's become almost a caricature and cartoon of itself. But going back and watching that first one, it is so much more grounded in the character dynamic of it, which it makes it the perfect fit for this, because it is that undercover cop trying to infiltrate this gang, figuring out who the bad guys really are, and starting to gain some sympathy for what they're doing, that maybe they're not as bad as we see. Maybe there's some honor among thieves. And it's so much more about the characters than about CG car explosions and chases, and how can we have more ridiculous chases. So yeah, I say if people have sort of lost touch with the core of what this franchise is about, go back and watch the first one, because it's so much more grounded in the people, which makes it a really solid film.
It's interesting too that I feel like all of the spin-offs have really, they've changed the vibe of the series, and now there's talk of Hobbs and Shaw, the kind of spin-off series between Jason Statham's character Deckard Shaw, has been announced, and that maybe Shane Black is going to direct it. They put a lot of the great sort of action DNA in this movie. Is anything great going to come out of future films? I don't know. Diesel has announced that the 10th film, which is currently slated to be released April 2nd, 2021, is going to be the final film in the series. And so at least we know we're getting 10, and then we can hang it up. But I'm with you on the first one. Check it out if you haven't, or at least revisit it to remind yourself of what the series is really all about.
I think that's
my pick.
I think that's the perfect pick to end the list, because I think, as you guys mentioned on the show, it is really that connection to Point Break, where you're grounded in these characters. It is a great action film, but there's so much more about the relationship between your two main stars, that there's some unique chemistry there. And I think that makes Fast and Furious the perfect way to end this list. So great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Now our question, Steve, is what are we going to do next week?
I don't know. What are you guys watching for next week? What is it it's Detroit, right?
It's Detroit. We're wrapping up this year's Catherine Bigelow series with Detroit. Boy, have you seen it?
No, it's on Hulu. It's on my list of it's finding the right evening to sit down and watch that, because it's not something to just sort of casually, I'll just put this on Saturday afternoon, just sit down and, watch Detroit.
Yeah.
That's something to be taken lightly. So I don't know where to go with this one.
I am really struggling with it, and because of just the nature of what it's about, and the controversy, frankly. And this our sort of current media appetite. The film. It's let's see. We've got the story of it's a true story. It's a story about police violence, racial violence, and it is. I think not to spoil it, but if you know the story, the challenge that I have with it is that the people that should win in the courtroom drama part don't win, and it is really not a satisfying way to end the film. And you know the truth, and yet still seeing it played out on screen is really tough. I don't know how. I don't have a sort of instinctive pick of even a single film that I would choose that would fit that, where the good guys lost in court. But that was one that I thought might jump out. What do you think?
That's tough. Well, sometimes when I'm trying to figure something out about a film, I go into IMDb and look at the plot keywords to sort of see what are the things. But of course,
what do you find?
Well, then you quickly spiral into the road of madness, where it's like every little tiny thing is in there, because it's, let's see, movies with a fictional character based on a real life person. Well, that's really broad. Then you've got British actress playing American character.
Well, that in many ways that might be the safest.
Or reference to John Coltrane. Almost hit by a car. Movies in which people are almost hit by a car, I think.
I don't even remember that in the movie. Are you kidding?
I don't know. Oh, no. There are
a lot of cars on fire.
False accusation of being a pimp. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
But I think maybe the courtroom drama piece, or is it more important that is it going to be
it's
about...
not really a courtroom. I mean, that's the thing. It's not a courtroom film. That's
is it more about historical, so true events of, I don't know,
bad police
or
true
riots.
Stories of bad police.
True stories of bad police. We're undercover already. You've got the riots going on.
Oh my God, Steve, bullhorn is a keyword for this. Bullhorn.
Yes, there's lots of bullhorns, I'm sure.
Oh dear.
That doesn't help.
Okay, how about true stories in which real documentary footage is used somehow? That's a keyword. Reference to Ford Motor Company.
Yeah.
These are delightful.
That'll bring us back to the Fast and the Furious again. That's but I guess what I think of this movie without having seen it, I know it's a historical moment about a very tense moment in American history. And so maybe is it broader like that sort of pivotal or key moments in American history that are turning points? Yeah, I'd say, because otherwise we get way too narrow. So I'd say we go a little bit broader to say, whoever's going to be here next Saturday, you bring what you think are movies about important parts of American history.
Well, I am definitely here next Saturday, so I'm okay with this. But there is a week coming up that I'm not, so we'll choose a really hard one for that week.
Okay.
This one's going to be great.
Sounds good.
Tension in American history for the list next week. We are that's going to be a fun one. There are a lot of I think great films that will help us cover that. We've been pretty stupid. Oh
yes,
and it's easy to document on film.
Yes, it is.
Excellent, outstanding. We're looking in a mirror next week, everybody. This has been fun, Steve. What's next on your list? What are you going to see this week?
Well, there's so our schedule has been so crazy busy. The rest of the family still has not seen Black Panther, so that's like number one on my list of that. But I still haven't seen Annihilation. Then we've got Wrinkle in Time. I mean, there's so much. The kids are on spring break next week, so we may I don't know, spend a lot of time out in the theaters to get away from the heat.
Yeah. Duck the heat, man.
Yes, because it's Arizona and it's March. It's starting to get up into the 70s. It's warming up.
What is it right now? Just tell me real quick. What is it right now? What is it
right now?
Yeah.
What does my phone tell me? Because I can't look out the window to look at a thermometer because that's archaic technology. Why would I depend on that?
Barbarian.
It right now is 65, and we will have a high of 78, and it's partly cloudy. So. Yeah, sort of like summer for you guys, right?
It's 34 degrees right now.
Oh my gosh.
57.
No.
Suck it, Steve.
I'm not making you live there. That's your choice.
I should be in bed. Next week I'm doing this in bed. Although the time changes again, so I feel better.
Oh,
this has been great.
Oh, next week. That's enough. Yeah, we could do some bed casting. There you go.
We're going to do bed casting. Get your coffee, everybody.
Get your coffee.
This has been really fun.
Yes.
Thank you, as always, Steve. Thank you for joining me this morning, and thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show, because if you are, it means you're a Patreon supporter, and we really appreciate that. And I have to tell you, I ordered merch, Steve.
You ordered merch?
Some sample merch. You're going to check your mailbox because you're going to tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
It's coming. It won't be here for like a month for some reason. It takes a long time.
Is it coming from China?
I don't know where it's coming from.
Okay.
I think it's coming from Canada. It's coming from Canada, but it just takes a long time. There's a lot of textile stuff. So
wow.
It's a big textile story. Don't worry about that. Anyway, hopefully we'll have some merch that we can start shipping out to people who are our supporters. That's what I'm really, really looking forward to. And until then, until next week, have a great week.
Yeah, you get better, get some rest, and enjoy some movies.